What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We're going to do the final Power 5 conference here. It's the Pac-12, our official 2022 predictions. Going to go and show you the standings and then show you who I have winning the Pac-12 championship. Probably Sunday, I will reveal my playoff predictions, go all the way through the national championship, and then we'll do the New Year's Six Bowl predictions after that. And I'm going to do a video where I show you what I think the top 25, the college football playoff rankings, is going to look like after championship weekend. So let's get into it here with the Pac-12. We'll start at the bottom. I've got Arizona State finishing in last place, 2-7, 4-8 overall. It just kind of came down to the tiebreakers here, but Arizona State I have beating Northern Arizona and Eastern Michigan in the non-conference, and then beating Washington and Oregon State at home. I think they will win a couple of games this year in the conference, but this is a team that I believe will be at the bottom of the Pac-12. And again, tied with two other teams. Colorado also at 2-7, 3-9 overall. They have the TCU and Minnesota in the non-conference. And I'll be honest, I haven't really spent a lot of time on the teams outside of the Power 5. They also play Air Force on the road, and I guess Air Force got some votes to get in the top 25, so they must be pretty good this year, or expected to be pretty good. So that might even be a loss there. I mean, it's not crazy to think that Colorado could go 0-12. I mean, it could happen. You look at the games that they have a decent chance to win. You know, Arizona is on the road. Oregon State, which is probably going to be a tough game. They play them on the road. So they get Cal and Arizona State at home. I think they might win those games. But again, not feeling all that confident with Colorado here, as I do only see them going about 3-9. Very tough. I mean, that is a tough non-conference schedule. Two Power 5 teams in Air Force. I've got Arizona also at 2-7, 4-8 overall. I have them losing to Mississippi State, beating San Diego State and North Dakota State. But those are also games that could be lost. Arizona could be in that same situation where they could go. It wouldn't be crazy to see Arizona go 0-12 this year, but I think they'll find some wins. I think they beat Colorado at home, Arizona State at home, and I do think they'll find some wins because I think this team will be a little bit better, kind of a new energy there at Arizona. But these three teams, again, could be in big trouble this year with the schedules that they play. Not playing a bunch of top 10 teams, but teams that absolutely can beat them. Moving into kind of that next tier, I've got California ahead of them. Remember, no divisions in the Pac-12 this year. I've got them at 3-6 in the conference, 5-7 overall. I've got them beating UC Davis, UNLV, Arizona at home. They get Washington at home, and then closing things out with the win over UCLA. This is a Cal team that I don't really expect to be all that good, but I just don't think that there's a ton of separation in these teams, except for maybe the top 3 or 4 teams. So I think they'll beat up on each other. They'll find ways to win some games, and I think Cal will win a few games. It may not be those 3 games, but I do expect them to win 2 or 3 games, at least in the Pac-12, but not enough to get to a bowl game, just 5-7. Then I've got Washington State also at 5-7, 3-6 overall. They'd have the tiebreaker over Cal. New transfer quarterback, we'll see what he can do. They're just missing a lot. The talent's just not there at Washington State. They lose a decent amount of production from last year. Not a team that goes out and reloads with recruiting or anything. So I think they drop off this year. A bowl game is absolutely a possibility, but I've got them at 5-7, beating Idaho, Colorado State, Cal at home, Arizona State at home, and then on the road at Arizona. But you look at the rest of the schedule, and where do you find a win? Wisconsin on the road would be tough. Oregon, USC, they'll play Oregon State on the road. Utah, Stanford on the road. Maybe they could get Washington again this year in that final game of the season, but I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Washington State to get to a bowl game, in my opinion. Ahead of them, I've got Oregon State. Oregon State 4-5 in the conference, 7-5. I think this is going to be a good team, but you just look at the schedule and you go game by game. You know, I think they beat Boise State. I think they beat Fresno State, Montana State. I've got them beating USC at home, Washington State at home, Colorado at home, Cal at home. But they've got some tough road games. Utah and Stanford will be tough. Washington on the road. An upset against Arizona State potentially, and then you have Oregon at the end of the season. So, yeah, they could beat Arizona State for sure. They should be the better team there. But, again, upsets happen. Teams that should win don't win all the time in college football. So 8-4 is absolutely a possibility for this team. I might be, but then again, they could lose to USC. So yeah, I think 7-5 is a pretty fair prediction for the Beavers. But again, a good 7-5 team. Don't sleep on this team. They could be, I think, a good solid team this year. Moving on to the top 5, I've got Washington. I think they bounced back this year, going 5-4 in the conference, 7-5 overall. Their losses will come to Michigan State, which is a winnable game at home. They could possibly get that one. They play UCLA and Arizona State on the road. I've got them losing those games, losing to Cal and Oregon on the road. But again, they could beat Arizona State, and that could be a win for them. They might lose to Washington State on the road. They might lose to Oregon State. So again, when we talk about these predictions, and I know I always say this, I make my predictions, I look at the schedule, I pick a record prediction for each team, and then I move the games around to where it'll work out to that record for every team. Sometimes I might need to get a win for one team and a loss for another team. It might change some things around. But at the end of the day, it's all about the record here. That's why I hate even doing the game-by-game predictions. Most people don't, you go to the preseason magazines, they're not going to go game-by-game. Very few people are going to make those predictions because as the season progresses, obviously, so much can change. But I think Washington is a 7-5 team this year, improved from last year. A lot coming back for them. UCLA also has a lot of production coming back this year, including Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback. I've got them beating Washington head-to-head, so they get the tiebreaker there at 5-4 in the conference, 8-4 overall. I've got UCLA losing to Oregon on the road, losing to Stanford, USC, and on the road at Cal. 9-3, I think, is definitely doable for UCLA. But again, they'll probably trip up somewhere. I've got this team going 8-4, a good team that's right there near the top 25 this year. USC at 6-3 in the conference. I've got them at 9-3 overall. Offense is going to be absolutely special, I think, but the defense might hold them back. I've got them losing on the road at Stanford, on the road at Oregon State, and on the road at Utah. Utah and Stanford, Stanford always seems to give them trouble. Utah's just a really good team. But again, if you want to say, well, they're not going to lose to Oregon State. Well, they might lose to UCLA on the road. They might lose to Notre Dame. So, I mean, however you want to look at it here, 9-3 I think is a very solid prediction for USC. Moving on to number 3. Actually, Stanford came out at number 3. Only 7-5 overall, but 6-3 in the Pac-12, and they would have that head-to-head win over USC. I'm expecting this team to be a bit of a surprise team this year. I think they bounce back. Both Stanford and Washington, I think, are two teams that really bounce back this year. I think Washington finally finds some offense. Stanford, I just think they have enough coming back to where they're going to be improved. Losses on the road at Washington, Oregon, Notre Dame, Utah, and then losing to BYU at home. But getting some big wins in there, beating USC, beating Oregon State, going on the road to beat UCLA. I think Stanford could do it. They could get to 7-5, but 6-6, definitely a possibility there. And then we've got Oregon at number 2, 8-1 in the conference, 10-2 overall, losing just to Georgia and Utah. That Utah game is really, I'm back and forth on that game. I think Oregon will probably lose the Pac-12 game, but they might finally get over the hump, beat Utah at home. That's just a tough one for me, but again, based off of the predictions that I did on all my videos, this is how it came out. And then Utah would have the tiebreaker over Oregon. They go 8-1 as well, 10-2 in the conference. I think Utah loses to Florida in the non-conference. Again, I did individual videos for these top teams. You can go back and I talk about that game more there. And then I think they lose to someone. I've got it maybe being UCLA on the road. But I think someone does get Utah. Maybe it is that Oregon game. And if that is the case and Oregon loses somewhere else, Oregon would have the tiebreaker, and they would be number 1. But either way, it doesn't really matter because both teams would go to the Pac-12 championship. And we'll have Oregon versus Utah in the Pac-12 championship. Again, rematch from last year. Utah beat them both times last year. I've got Utah beating them again in the regular season. But I think Oregon finally gets over the hump. I think this team, maybe Utah gets a little bit overconfident. Bo Nix learns from some mistakes in the first game. Oregon finds a way to get it done. I think Oregon wins the Pac-12 championship this year. I think it's between Oregon, Utah, and USC as far as who is going to get to this game. But I do feel pretty confident. I really think it's Oregon's year. I think they're going to win the Pac-12 this year. They have a lot of talent coming back. Bo Nix, I think, is going to do really well for them at quarterback. And I've got the Ducks, again, winning the Pac-12 championship. Would love to get your thoughts, your predictions, your thoughts on my predictions. Give them to me down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.